August 6, 1945. A warm morning sun rises over Hiroshima. The sky is impossibly blue, the kind of blue that makes a man believe the war might finally end soon. Down by the Ota River, children walk to school with satchels bouncing against their sides. Factory workers head toward the Mitsubishi shipyards, their faces tired but hopeful. And in a small rented room on the edge of the city, a 30-year-old engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi ties the strap of his briefcase and looks at his train ticket home, Nagasaki. He plans to return that very afternoon. He has been away for 3 months, designing new oil tankers for the Navy. He misses his wife, Hisako, and his infant son, Katsutoshi.
I'll be home by tonight, finally.
He doesn't know that history will tear the sky open in less than an hour. At 8 a.m., Yamaguchi steps off a tram near the shipyard. He realizes he has forgotten his hunko, his company seal, needed for travel papers, so he turns back toward his lodging to retrieve it. That small delay will save his life. He walks along a quiet road bordered by sweet potato fields and the low hum of cicadas. A single plane passes overhead, silver, glinting, almost beautiful against the morning sun. It is the Enola Gay. At 8:15 a.m., time itself breaks. A light brighter than 1,000 suns erupts above the city, a silent flash that outshines creation. For a fraction of a second, Yamaguchi sees his own shadow burned into the earth. Then comes the sound, a thunder so deep it seems to rise from the bones of the earth. He is thrown backward, seared by a wave of heat that strips the skin from his arms and face. His eardrums burst. The world disappears into a roaring white wind. When Yamaguchi wakes, the city he knew is gone. Hiroshima, a city of 350,000 souls, lies in ruin. He staggers to his feet, skin blistered and blackened, ears ringing. Everywhere around him, the air shimmers with dust and ash. The smell of burning flesh and iron fills his lungs. He stumbles through the wreckage, calling out,
Tasukete,
"Tasukete kudasai."
help. Help me.
But there are no answers, only shapes. People moving slowly, their skin hanging from their arms like torn silk. They walk silently toward the river, their faces expressionless, eyes white from the flash. This is the birth of the hibakusha, the explosion-affected people. And Tsutomu Yamaguchi has become one of them. He finds 2 of his colleagues from Mitsubishi, both alive, both barely recognizable. Together, they search for shelter. They find it in a half-collapsed factory building. There, as night falls, the city burns. Flames crawl through the ruins like living things. They hear the cries of the dying outside and the low moan of the river swallowing bodies. The sky glows red, then black, then red again. No stars remain. Yamaguchi presses a cloth to his burns. He whispers his family's names, Hisako, Katsutoshi, over and over, afraid that if he stops saying them, they will vanish too. At dawn on August 7th, Yamaguchi and his colleagues decide to leave Hiroshima. Rumors spread that trains are still running from the outskirts. A miracle, they say, a lifeline through the ruins. They make their way through a city of ghosts. People stand in silence, holding the bodies of loved ones. The rivers are black with ash and floating corpses. At the edge of the city, an old conductor waves them toward a surviving train line. Smoke still rises behind them. The train cars are crowded with the wounded, burned soldiers, children, women clutching bundles of rags that used to be clothes. The smell of death follows them as they climb on board. As the train begins to move, someone whispers,
Yurei Resha.
"Ghost Train." And that is what it becomes known as. A train full of the living dead, leaving behind one hell, bound unknowingly for another. As the train rattles through the countryside, Yamaguchi stares out at the passing fields, his eyes hollow. He tells himself that Nagasaki will be different, that his home still stands, that his wife and son will still be there. He cannot know that in just 3 days, the sky will burn again. The ghost train from Hiroshima continues south, carrying its passengers through the dawn. Men, women, and children all caught between life and death, all unaware that fate has reserved for them a second seat in history's darkest chapter. The train moves slowly out of Hiroshima, wheels groaning over twisted rails. Inside, silence hangs heavy. The passengers, men, women, children, sit wrapped in makeshift bandages, staring at nothing. Outside, the fields pass in streaks of green and gray, the smoke of a dying city still visible on the horizon. The war is ending, they tell themselves. Surely it must be. But as the train clatters toward the southwest, few dare to believe in peace.
Do you think the Americans will drop another one?
The question drifts through the carriage like ash. No one answers. Among them sits Tsutomu Yamaguchi, his body burned, his arm bound tightly with torn cloth. He stares at his reflection in the train window, the face of a man half gone, eyes sunken, skin blistered like melted wax. He thinks only of home, of Hisako, his wife, and Katsutoshi, his little boy. He grips the train ticket still tucked in his pocket, the paper stiff with sweat and blood. The journey takes long hours, the air thick with the stench of smoke and infection. At every stop, new faces appear, soldiers, mothers, children, each carrying the same haunted silence. By dusk, the train reaches Nagasaki. Yamaguchi steps onto the platform and breathes in the sea-cooled air. He is home. The city still stands. No ruins, no firestorms. Only the sound of cicadas and distant temple bells. He bows deeply, whispering a prayer of thanks.
Kami-sama, arigato.
Yamaguchi stands onto the platform and breathes in the sea-cooled air. He is home. The city still stands. No ruins, no firestorms. Only the sound of cicadas and distant temple bells. He bows deeply, whispering a prayer of thanks.
Kami-sama, arigato.
His wife gasps when she sees him. His arms and face are covered in gauze, his eyes swollen nearly shut. She runs to him trembling.
Tsutomu, what happened?
He tells her about the sky that became a sun, about the wind that burned and screamed, about the dead who walked without faces. Hisako listens in silence, her hand over her mouth. Then she leads him inside, washes his wounds, and wraps him in clean cloth. Their small house smells faintly of rice and salt water. For the first time in days, he sleeps. The next morning, August 9th, dawn breaks over Nagasaki. Yamaguchi rises early. Despite his injuries, he insists on going to work at Mitsubishi. He feels he must report what happened in Hiroshima, must tell someone, anyone, what the world has unleashed. At 10:30 a.m., he arrives at the company's office. His colleagues gather around him, stunned by his appearance. He begins to explain.
They dropped a new kind of bomb, one that burns the air itself. It was one flash, and the city disappeared.
Some laugh nervously. Others shake their heads.
That's impossible.
One says, "A single bomb can't do that." Yamaguchi opens his mouth to answer, but before he can, the windows blaze white. Another flash. Another sun. This one brighter, closer. The building shudders as an invisible hand tears through the city. Glass explodes inward. The roof lifts and collapses. Yamaguchi throws himself to the floor. He lands near the stairwell, the same kind of narrow corridor that saved him in Hiroshima. He covers his head and prays.
Hisaku, Katsutoshi, Kameyo, Mamote.
The blast rips through the room, yet somehow he lives again. The walls around him collapse, but the stairwell holds. A miracle born of pure chance. Outside, Nagasaki burns. From the valley floor, a black column rises, a mushroom of fire reaching into the clouds. The second atomic bomb has found its mark. Hours later, Yamaguchi staggers into open air. He can hardly see. The city he loved has become a furnace. Bodies lie in the streets. Fires climb the hillsides. He makes his way home through smoke and silence, terrified of what he will find. His house is still standing, the wooden walls charred but upright. Inside, Hisako and Katsutoshi are alive, shielded by a small reinforced shelter built beside a riverbank. For a moment, time stops. He holds them both and weeps.
I saw the same sun twice, and I am still here.
That night, Nagasaki glows with the same unholy light that had consumed Hiroshima. In the distance, a single bell rings from a half-collapsed temple. Survivors wander aimlessly through the ruins, their faces illuminated by firelight. Some call it judgment, others call it madness. Yamaguchi can only sit in silence, listening to his son breathe beside him. He has crossed through 2 infernos and lived, yet cannot understand why. He whispers again, not to any god, but to the world itself.
No more. Please, no more.
The echo fades into the night. The war will end within a week, but for those who survived the 2 suns, peace will never be simple. Their bodies may heal, but the memory will burn forever. They have become the living witnesses, the travelers of the Ghost Train of Hiroshima, and now of Nagasaki. The sun rises over Nagasaki, veiled behind a shroud of smoke. The morning light struggles to pierce the gray sky, falling over ruins where streets once ran. The air is thick, heavy with ash, soot, and the bitter smell of burned metal and flesh. There are no birds, no engines, no voices. Only the faint crackle of fires that refuse to die.
Tsutomu Yamaguchi walks through the wreckage, his body trembling with exhaustion. Each step sends pain through his bandaged legs. The ground is covered in fragments of what was once a city: a child's sandal, a melted bicycle frame, the twisted rails of a tram line. He stops beside a river where people once washed their clothes. Now the banks are lined with bodies, their outlines barely human, their faces turned to the sky. He closes his eyes.
Nagasaki, gomen nasai.
All around him, survivors move like shadows. They search for water, for food, for someone they might still recognize. Some call out names that vanish into the smoke.
お父さん、母さん、どこですか?
No answer. Only the echo of despair carried by the wind. He helps where he can. A woman with burns over her arms, a child whose eyes have turned milky white. They look at him without recognition, their minds somewhere beyond pain. When night falls, he returns home. His wife Hisako sits by a candle, the light trembling across her face. Their son sleeps, clutching a piece of wood as if it were a toy.
We lived again. But at what cost?
Yamaguchi cannot answer. He only nods and sits beside her, his hand finding hers in the dark. Days pass. Rain begins to fall. Thick, oily rain blackened by the radioactive sky. It soaks the ruins, turns the ash to mud. Some believe the rain is cleansing the city, others whisper that it is poison. Hospitals are overrun. Doctors, themselves wounded, move from patient to patient with trembling hands. No medicine, no anesthesia, only gauze, water, and prayers.
It hurts to breathe. The air feels like knives.
Children cough up blood. Skin peels away like paper. Hair falls out in clumps. No one knows why. They have no word for radiation. At the temple grounds, priests chant sutras for the dead. The voices rise and fall like waves, the only sound that reminds the living they still have souls. On the sixth day after the bombing, word reaches Nagasaki. Japan has surrendered. The emperor's voice, calm and distant, flows through static on the radio. Men and women gather in silence, listening to words that will end the war.
戦い方く、死のばかたく、耐えられんとことを耐えて、死のばかたく。
For the first time in his life, Yamaguchi hears the voice of his emperor. Tears run down his face. It should be a moment of relief, yet all he feels is emptiness. The war is over. But the cities are gone. The people are gone. And the peace that follows feels colder than the grave. That night, he returns to what remains of his factory office. The walls are gone. Only the frame of the building stands, like the skeleton of a beast long dead. He kneels amid the rubble and finds a single warped sheet of metal, the remnant of his desk. He presses his hand to it and whispers,
なぜて、私だけ。にと、私だけ。
The question hangs unanswered in the night. Above him, the stars flicker faintly, a sky the color of bruised steel. He looks toward the mountains, where the air is clearer. In the distance, small lanterns drift on the river, the annual Toro Nagashi, the floating of lights for the dead. One by one, they glide across the dark water, each flame trembling with memory.
みんな、おやすみ。
Weeks pass. The fires die out, and the first shoots of green begin to emerge from the blackened soil. It seems impossible, yet nature returns before the heart can heal. Yamaguchi grows weaker, his body consumed by infection and radiation sickness. But his mind remains sharp. He begins to write. He records what he saw, the flash, the wind, the silence that followed. He knows the world must remember.
人々が忘れれば、また起こる。
He writes by candlelight, his trembling hand moving slowly over paper. The words are not just testimony, they are warning, confession, and prayer. One morning, he walks once more to the river. Children play near the banks now, laughing among the ruins. Their voices echo where once there was only silence. He watches them, a faint smile crossing his scarred face. The light of dawn touches the water, and for a moment the city seems to shimmer, not with fire, but with life. He whispers softly, to no one in particular.
これは人海の声だ。生きるために。
And with that, he turns home, leaving footprints in the ash that soon fade with the wind. Nagasaki sleeps beneath a sky that finally holds stars again. The dead rest, the living endure. Out of destruction, a fragile peace is born, not of triumph, but of remembrance. From Hiroshima to Nagasaki, Tsutomu Yamaguchi carried the memory of two suns, the light that ended a war and the darkness that followed. He would spend the rest of his life speaking for those who could not to seek vengeance, but to remind the world of its own humanity.
もう二度とボンブはない。もう二度と幽霊はない。
The voice fades into silence. Only the wind remains, gentle now, carrying the scent of the sea through a city reborn from ashes. The war has ended. The radio static fades and silence returns to Japan. Not the silence of peace, but the stunned quiet of survival. Cities lie in ruin. Mountains of ash mark where lives once stood. And in a small house near the port of Nagasaki, one man wakes each morning to the sound of waves brushing the shore. His name is Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who has seen two suns fall.
His wounds take months to heal. The burns on his face and arms scab over, then reopen. He cannot look in the mirror. When he does, he barely recognizes the man staring back. Skin pale as paper, hair thin and falling away. Eyes haunted, but unbroken. Hisako tends to him each day, quietly, tenderly. She brings water boiled with herbs, rice porridge, soft fish. Their little boy, Katsutoshi, plays by the window, building tiny wooden ships from debris he collects by the river. The house smells of medicine and sea salt. Outside, life begins again. Fishermen repair their nets, school children return to classes, and farmers dig through scorched soil for seeds that might still grow. But Yamaguchi's nights are restless. Each time he closes his eyes, he sees the flash, Pika, the bursts that turn the sky white. He wakes drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Why did I live when so many did not?
The question becomes a prayer that never finds an answer.
Months pass. His wounds heal into thin scars that cross his neck and arms like rivers on a map. The doctors say he is lucky, but luck feels like cruelty when it leaves you behind. Still, he forces himself to live. He returns to work at Mitsubishi, his steps slow but steady. He writes reports, draws blueprints, and tries not to think about how easily all of them, had been erased by light. One afternoon, a colleague approaches him quietly. They said you were in Hiroshima when it happened. And then here? Is that true?
Yamaguchi nods.
2 times? Kami-sama.
The man bows deeply, eyes full of awe and pity. Soon word spreads through the factory. The engineer who survived both bombs. They begin calling him Niju Hibakusha, the double-bombed man. But Yamaguchi does not feel like a miracle. He feels like a messenger no one wants to hear. Years pass. Japan rebuilds, steel and glass rising where wood and paper once stood. The scars on the land begin to fade, but the memories linger like shadows under the sun. Yamaguchi raises his son, teaches him kindness, patience, the value of silence. He speaks rarely of the war. Only once, when Katsutoshi turns 12, does he tell the full story.
There was a flash. I thought lightning had struck. Then came a sound, a roar that broke the world. And when I opened my eyes, Hiroshima was gone.
His son listens, wide-eyed, silent. Yamaguchi ends the tale softly.
I lived. So now I must make that mean something.
In 1957, Yamaguchi begins to share his story publicly. At first, only in small gatherings, schools, churches, memorial halls. He speaks slowly, carefully, as if each word carries the weight of the dead. He describes the blinding light, the suffocating heat, the screams of the burned. But more than that, he speaks of forgiveness, of the need to understand.
Anger cannot rebuild the world. Only peace can.
His words carry the quiet authority of someone who has stood inside the fire and walked out alive. Still, there are those who doubt him. Some say no man could have survived both bombs. Others call it a myth, a story too cruel to be true. But in 1957, the Japanese government verifies it. Tsutomu Yamaguchi is indeed a survivor of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the only officially recognized Niju hibakusha. Reporters come, foreign journalists write headlines. To the world he becomes a symbol, the man who survived twice. To himself he remains a man who simply kept walking when others could not. In the decades that follow, Yamaguchi grows old, but never quiet. He gives lectures in schools, appears in documentaries, writes letters to the United Nations. His message never changes.
No country should possess such weapons. No city should know such light.
When asked if he hated America, he shakes his head.
I hate only the idea of war, not the people.
In his voice there is no bitterness, but only the deep sadness of someone who has seen humanity at its most brilliant and its most blind. As the 21st century begins, Yamaguchi is an old man. His back is bent, his step uneven, but his mind remains sharp. Each August he travels to Hiroshima and Nagasaki to attend the memorials. He stands among schoolchildren releasing paper lanterns into the river, their light drifting like stars set free. He tells them stories, not of hatred or revenge, but of endurance.
The light that destroyed can also remind us to cherish the light that heals.
When he speaks, even the cicadas fall silent. In 2009, 65 years after the bombs, Tsutomu Yamaguchi stands before a small audience in Tokyo. His voice trembles now, but his eyes are clear. He speaks of his friends lost in Hiroshima, of the workers who never made it home, of Hisako, who passed years before him. Then he pauses, his breath catching.
I am now old, but as long as I live, I will keep saying this. No more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasaki's.
The audience falls silent. Some weep, others simply bow their heads. It will be his final public speech. In January 2010, Tsutomu Yamaguchi passes away peacefully at the age of 93. Outside, snow falls gently over Nagasaki, white, quiet, forgiving. His story spreads around the world, translated into dozens of languages. Children study his name in history books. Artists paint his likeness. Writers call him a witness of two worlds, the world that was destroyed and the one that tried to learn from it.
これからは平和のために生きる。
From now on, I live for peace. That was his promise, and through his story, it remains ours. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's life was not about survival, it was about meaning. He carried the weight of two cities, the memory of two sons, and the hope that humanity could choose light without destruction. When asked what he wanted the world to remember, he said only this:
We are all one family, under one sky. Never forget how fragile that sky can be.
And so the man who survived twice left behind not fear, but faith. Faith that from the ashes of fire, peace can still be born. The years move forward, quietly. The world changes, new cities rise, new wars begin and end, but the shadows of Hiroshima and Nagasaki never fade. In both cities, the rivers still flow, carrying the reflections of bridges and lanterns. Children play on the same streets where ashes once fell. The sky above them is clear now, impossibly blue, a fragile canvas of memory. And somewhere within that silence, the voice of Tsutomu Yamaguchi still whispers.
In Hiroshima, the Peace Memorial Dome stands as a skeleton of time, a structure left unhealed so the world will not forget. Every August 6th, thousands gather there, candles in hand, eyes lifted toward the morning sky. The bells toll at 8:15 a.m., the precise moment the world changed. Their echoes ripple through the air, soft yet unyielding. Okasan wa mada kikoeru deshou ka? Mother, can you still hear us?
The question drifts upward with the smoke of incense. Somewhere, a child weeps without knowing why. 3 days later, in Nagasaki, the ceremonies begin again. At the Hypocenter Park, the air is filled with the scent of chrysanthemums. Paper cranes hang from strings, thousands of them, each one a prayer, folded by hands that refuse to forget. School children stand in rows, singing softly. Their voices blend with the hum of cicadas, carrying a melody older than grief.
Kokoro wa mada ikite imasu. Our hearts are still alive.
Among the crowd, a bronze plaque bears Yamaguchi's name. Visitors stop to read, bow slightly, and move on, but the weight of his words lingers like a breath on the wind. In classrooms across Japan, his story is told each year. Teachers stand before chalkboards filled with dates and places. August 6th, Hiroshima. August 9th, Nagasaki. But when they speak his name, the lesson shifts from history to humanity. They tell their students of the man who saw both suns rise and lived to tell the tale, of how he forgave, how he spoke for peace, and how he believed that remembrance is a form of love.
If you remember what happened, you protect the world from itself.
The children listen, quiet and wide-eyed. Some write his name in notebooks. Others whisper it like a spell. Yamaguchi, a name that carries both sorrow and hope. Outside Japan, his story continues to travel, across oceans, through books, documentaries, songs, and museums. In the United Nations Hall, his words are read out loud each year on the anniversary of the atomic bombings.
No nation should suffer as Hiroshima and Nagasaki have suffered.
Diplomats sit in silence. For a brief moment, the weight of his voice breaks through the noise of politics and pride. It reminds them that peace is not a treaty. It is a choice made every single day. In Hiroshima's Peace Park, a flame burns, the Heiwa no Hi, the flame of peace. It will remain lit until the last nuclear weapon on Earth is destroyed. Each night, the flame flickers in the wind, reflected in the Motoyasu River below. Sometimes, visitors swear they can see shapes in the glow, faces of those who were lost, smiling faintly in the firelight.
Watashitachi wa wasurenai. We will not forget.
And they don't, because forgetting would mean losing the lessons written in ash and light. In Nagasaki, an old cherry tree still blooms every spring. It grows near the ruins of Urakami Cathedral, its trunk twisted by the blast, but alive nonetheless. The locals call it Inochi no Ki, the tree of life. Every spring, petals drift down over the city like pale snow. Elderly survivors watch in silence, their faces soft with memory. Among them, Yamaguchi's grandchildren and great-grandchildren stand holding white flowers. They have never known war, but they carry his legacy like an heirloom.
Ji-chan wa futatsu no taio o mita. Grandfather saw 2 sons.
They say it with both pride and sorrow, the inheritance of a story too heavy for words. Around the world, there are still those who speak his name: historians, teachers, poets, filmmakers, all drawn to the quiet courage of a man who lived through the impossible and chose compassion instead of hate. In every retelling, his message grows softer yet stronger, a whisper that crosses generations.
Peace is not the absence of war. It is the presence of understanding.
Those words appear now on walls, in books, in classrooms, a message carried through time like the chime of a bell after the wind has passed. And what of the ghost train, that spectral journey from Hiroshima to Nagasaki, carrying the wounded and the living dead? The train no longer runs, its tracks have been rebuilt, its stations renamed. But if you stand by the line at dusk, when the air is still and the sky turns red, you might feel it pass, a faint rumble beneath your feet, a memory in motion.
この電車は平和へ向かって走っている. This train is running toward peace.
And so it does, forever, endlessly through time and remembrance. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's story is not one of death, but of endurance. He saw humanity at its worst and still believed in its capacity for good. He was burned by light, yet carried that light forward to illuminate others. His legacy is not confined to stone monuments or pages in a book. It lives in every act of kindness, every word spoken in defense of peace, and every moment when a person chooses empathy over anger.
Even after the fire, life will bloom again.
And so it does, in the petals of cherry blossoms, in the laughter of children, in the quiet strength of survivors who remember. When the bells of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ring each August, their sound crosses oceans, reminding the world of one simple truth: that peace is fragile, but it is also possible. In the end, Tsutomu Yamaguchi's life was a message written in fire and rewritten in forgiveness, a warning and a hope, a reminder that the brightest light is not the flash that destroys, but the one that endures.
平和は心から始まる. Peace begins in the heart.
And with that, the story of the ghost train fades into stillness, its echoes carried on the wind, its destination forever the same: a world that remembers and chooses peace.